right time, just making sure you're coming.
Yeah.
So, we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you for that.
Yeah, why?
Yeah, why? Well, 'cause you're not here.
You can't catch it right next.
Yeah, you're gonna be up
All
super
right,
quick.
are we ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
Great, the time is 7:31, and we are back from executive session. So we'll move on to item 3 on tonight's agenda, which is the acceptance of the agenda. Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we accept the agenda.
Second.
I'll second it.
Who got that?
I give it, doesn't matter.
Jim? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. The next item is approval of the minutes from our regular meeting of January 17th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I make a motion.
Okay, Sean?
I'll second.
All right, any errors, changes, omissions?
Yeah, Ryan, it said that I didn't attend the, joint meeting and regular meeting of that date, but I was on Zoom. It said I was absent, but I was on Zoom that day.
That's true. So, can we have approval with that change?
Yep.
Second again?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Next up is communications and correspondence. I have a few items this evening. One, Andy Bauer had reached out to me. He is the chair of our Clean Energy Task Force. He asked to be on the agenda this evening yesterday, and I told him that we're pretty full tonight. So he's going to attend on our second meeting in February on the 21st. But he did have this message that I want to read right now. Dear Board of Selectmen, please be advised that the Clean Energy Task Force, along with the First Selectman's Office, the Public Works Department, and Earthlight Technologies, have begun preliminary evaluations at a handful of Portland facilities for the possible installation of electric vehicle charging stations. This is exploratory in nature at this time. I'll summarize and take questions at the next meeting in February in regards to Andy Bauer. So we're looking forward to that at our next meeting. I know the board received this letter from our superintendent that was addressed to me, so I will read this into the record. This is addressed to myself. Dear First Selectman Curley, on Tuesday, February 6, 2024, Stephanie Fragola and I notified the Portland Board of Education that we are running a deficit. We currently project a deficit in the amount of $350,000. The deficit is caused by an increase in student support services associated with new student outplacements, a reduction in anticipated excess cost reimbursement for student support services from the Connecticut State Department of Education, and an increase in the threshold the LEA is responsible to meet for student support services. All of these expenses reflect mandated services, and all of the expenses are outside of our ability to control. Attached to this letter is an enrollment report shared by Dawn Davis. The enrollment report shows the unanticipated increases in outplacements. There will continue to be variability within the support services budget. This variability will reflect changes in student needs and reimbursements we receive from the Connecticut State Department of Education. With a little luck and careful oversight, I am hopeful we can reduce the deficit. However, I can confidently state that we will end the year in a deficit position. We will not know the exact amount of the deficit until the end of the academic year. We are attempting to mitigate the deficit by maintaining a hard freeze on all non-essential spending at this point, and until otherwise directed by you, the Portland Board of Education, or the Portland Board of Selectmen. We are not considering mid-year furloughs, layoffs, or reductions in academic, athletic, co-curricular, or extracurricular programming. I believe that any reductions of this nature would simply be too disruptive to our faculty, staff, families, and most importantly, our students. Therefore, please consider this letter notification that a request for a supplemental appropriation is anticipated. I am willing to meet with you or the Board of Selectmen to explain the causes of the deficit and our ongoing efforts to mitigate the deficit. Sincerely, Charles D. Britton, Superintendent of Schools. So I did want to read that into the record. Not good news. Next up is, I wanted to take a moment and just talk about our Route 9, the DOT's proposed changes to Route 9, and the impact that that proposed change would have on Portland residents. So there are two public workshops coming up on February 21st and February 22nd that DOT is putting on. The plan overall is pretty good, I think, except for one pretty big sticking point. And that is that anyone traveling Route 9 north that wants to get into Portland and go across the Aragoni Bridge, the two lights, the two exits that are now available on Route 9, DOT is proposing to remove both of those lights. And so the solution to get over the Aragoni Bridge would take travelers down Main Street Middletown instead, and down to Coven Drive instead, or motorists would have to continue past the Aragoni Bridge and take that first Cromwell exit and then turn around. So DOT has not promoted any one of those options more than the other. They're kind of right now telling motorists that they will figure it out and kind of let the GPS tell you which way is best at any given time. It doesn't really seem like a good plan, certainly for the town of Portland. We've had several meetings now with some representatives from DOT, with myself, the mayor of Middletown, the town manager of Cromwell, the town manager of East Hampton, as well as Johanna Bond from the Middlesex Chamber. All of those individuals are opposed to the current plan for the reason that we're saying here. We're afraid that vehicles will be on Main Street, Middletown, blocking traffic, blocking emergency vehicles that need to get into the town, and causing, we're gonna have tractor trailers on Main Street, Middletown, causing a hazard to pedestrians, which is something that Middletown doesn't want, and also the business community doesn't want motorists that don't want to be there. And so we are working on a solution with DOT. We are reaching out to the commissioner to talk about alternatives, but I did want to bring this to everyone's attention because this, if it does go forward, would impact the town of Portland and its residents. So I want to make you all aware of this. Again, those workshops are February 21st at 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then February 22nd from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. So more to come, but that's where we're at with the Route 9 proposed changes. And last but not least, some good news is that the Middlesex County Revitalization Commission, which is run through the Middlesex Chamber of Commerce, has announced that their new grant program is launching. Again, this is every year for the next 4 years. The first year was last year. We get $200,000 in grants to give away to small businesses in Middlesex County. And so the application process is beginning on March 1st. It will run through March 31st. And so I plan on doing a tour of Portland businesses to make sure that everyone is aware of this. Everyone can apply if they're interested for Portland businesses, and I want our Portland businesses to win these grants. So more to come on that, but I did want to announce that today because that is coming up very soon. So that is it for communications and correspondence today, so we can move on to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment? Anyone online? You said Ellen wants to comment?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can hear you, Ellen.
Good. I'll be real quick. I want to start with a big thank you to Mr. Curley for his attention to my several communications about the lack of protection on the Hard Jarvis house. We've got a tarp on that roof. Thank you very much, Ryan, for your engagement on that issue. And related to that, a reminder of something that I've spoken to before, but that I know you're going to be talking about tax assessment once again on property. And I'm going to say once more that I think in your negotiations with the Brainerd Place owners, that you need to we attempted to conditioning that approval, and I assume you will approve it, on two factors. One is that the restoration of the buildings be done to the Secretary of Interior standards, and secondly, that no abatement take place until 50% of phase 3 is completed. We want a mixed-use development, and that phase 3 is the key to having a mixed-use development for the benefit of all those persons living at Raymond Place. Thank you very much, and thank you again, Ryan.
Thank you, Alvin. All right, is there anyone else online? Last chance for in person. There'll be a second opportunity later if anyone changes their mind. So we'll move on to item 8, which is our monthly budget report. Our finance director, Tom Robinson, is here with us this evening. Hi, Tom.
Not up the press.
I don't know, that's where he was. Just cut out one.
Good evening, everyone. So I wanted to, you have here the monthly budget report for January 31st out. If we start with the revenues, on the count ending in 0011, prior year tax collections, we're seeing some strong prior year tax collections. We also have the tax sale process ongoing. So that, is we do tend to bring in higher prior year tax collections and interest rates, interest and liens from tax collections in those years where we have a tax sale process going on. There's still some properties that will go to, currently right now are going to tax sale, but it can change from the time period of when the actual sale is. Supplemental motor vehicles, the bills had gone out, and we are receiving monies in for that. So that's going from 11, 12 to 13. Account 00201, the pilot state-owned, we received slightly higher funds than we had expected. So the governor changed his budgeted amount and provided more funds. 00324, police private duty, still active police private duty. We'll also have an offsetting expense account in the police budget. This is generally will make some funds and some amounts over the expenditures, and I'm sure there's the monies that are out as a receivable at this time. 00328, building structures and permits. The monies have come in pretty decently on that, and we'll keep watching that, the funds there. And 00401, interest rates still remain to be coming in pretty strong. I've heard from a few bankers that it's possible that they will drop off in the near future, or in the future. So we'll keep an eye on that. Anybody have any questions on the revenues? Okay. Moving on to the expense. On page 2, election worker stipends. There's a good possibility with some of the changes within the elections that will go over budget. So we'll have to watch that, and we'll see. I think there are some grant funds, but I think they're going to be utilized to buy equipment that's required for the project as well.
Can I just add on that?
Sure.
I just want the board to be aware of what early voting is doing to the budget. And so while personally, I think early voting is great. I think the way the state went about it is a little cumbersome here. And the estimate that our town clerk provided us in poll workers to run early voting is about $40,000. And we're getting $10,000 from the state. So basically, there's a $30,000 unfunded mandate that is hitting municipalities in each town across the state. So I just want you all to be aware that that is coming and it's a problem.
Thank you, Ryan. On page 4, the fire department, the areas of concern is 31,000 service contracts. There's communications contracts that they have. There are tower generator contracts, fire alarm testing contracts, fire consultants for writing of grants, as well as HVAC. And there's been some HVAC issues at Company 1 and Company 3. So those are areas within HVAC hits, it's a little tricky, but that's probably an account that kind of continues to get underfunded, that we probably need to work on getting that funded a little better in the future. Conference meetings and dues, I think that, there's events where they have to have county chief dinners, and there's also been some change in leadership, so there's some different conferences or meetings that they have to attend. And then we have the fireman's banquet. This year was slightly higher due to the retirements and a very high turnout. Fire marshal fund, gas and diesel, we'll have to keep an eye on that. And we do have a new gas and diesel monitoring system, so it could just be that we're getting a little bit better of an accurate read on those numbers. On page 5, this would be the police department. We had touched upon conference meetings and dues before. That's kind of a training line item. It's also has conferences, meetings, and dues, and all of those type of things in it. There was some higher level trainings that were costly, but they were in the area, so we had to have the detective attend. There's also been quite a bit of transition within the department, so as that transition occurs, additional trainings are required for the movements within the department, and they also have the 52-hour trainings that are required as well. A couple other areas we keep on watching on licensing and software, and then private duty, that's always an area of that we likely overspend, and we'll have to work with that supplemental appropriation later on, as revenues generally come in higher than those expenditures. Next area would be page 8. Page 8, Highway Division, waste services. I think there's just been some more pickups and waste. That's usually waste at the transfer station, and sometimes other waste that has to occur due to the regulations of getting some of those supplies out. So that's what I'm sure that Ryan will look at that line item and determine if that needs to be going up as time goes on. Page 7. Page 7 is looks pretty good, except in engineering, there's miscellaneous engineering. There's is over by about 6,000, and that's really relates to some work that's been done on the airline trail grant or potential grant application, and the airline boat launch project, until we get to the point of where we actually can start utilizing the grant that we have. I know that the engineers and Ryan and the other Ryan are all working toward getting this moving along. But that's where we're seeing that number go up, and that's generally when we have grants that are engineering expenses that are utilized for grants before the grants is kind of where that number comes from. Also sometimes comes out of public works engineering. Page 8, overtime, building maintenance. There's been some, projects that have gone on here in the town hall. There's been some storm activities, as well as just other overtime that's required and as well. And I'm sure that the Public Works Director will review that line item and try to mitigate that as much as possible going forward. Page 9, the Inland Wetlands Commission, the enforcement officer has today has spent $2,272 of the $2,800. Seems to be when I review the invoice, it seems there's quite a bit going on, quite a bit of meetings, events that he has to respond to, or emails, as telephone calls, types of correspondence. So that one is a good possibility that we'll go over by the end of the year. I would almost say that it's a certainty that it will go over. Page 11, we talked about this last time. That's his van driver stipends. Even though we continue to increase this line item, there seems to be a continued need for these transportations within the public, and we only have about 31% left, where we should be closer to the 41% marker. So we'll have to, we usually do try to keep an eye on that and watch that, and but it's a challenge to not have people that need the transportation to get the transportation that they need. So we usually try to work with the senior center, and Ryan works with them to help coordinate those type of activities. When we go to page 12, termination benefits, that we had a few some key long-term employees leave, so that's not an unexpected. We did our best to bump that number, but it is over, even it's a little bit over what we had estimated, as there was a few other departures as well. So we had a few key that we kind of estimated on, but didn't estimate on those other people leaving as well, and that's what we'll watch, and we'll watch that. That's what I have on expenditures.
Does anyone have questions for Ken?
Just a quick question, you just alluded that we might have some other termination benefits that you're concerned about, or?
No, we had the two to three large ones that, we were definitely concerned about. There was a few other people that have left as well, that just, so we had budgeted roughly the 2 to 3 that we thought, and I think there was a few more that had left already. There's always a possibility of one or, a few more to go, or different ones to go, but hopefully not too many.
Don't give anyone any ideas.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah,
All right, thank you all.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, we'll move on to item 8 on tonight's agenda, which is a resolution. There's a resolution in your packet, and so this is a resolution of transfer of funds, authorization, Public Works, Highway Division, Capital. And our Public Works Director, Ryan O'Halpin, is here to go over this. This has to do with our trackless mower, and I believe it turns out that there's a piece of equipment that we need to purchase with our trackless mower in order for it to run as our previous mower ran. Is that correct, Ryan?
Correct.
Tell us about it.
Sure. So we attempted to order the same exact trackless mower, just brand new. So on paper, looks exactly the same. But over the last 9 years since, we ordered the original one, they had taken some things off the base model, The base model itself came with a front axle differential, which means you could lock the axle. The new model does not have that, and it's not in writing. Now, it's an added option, but they didn't give me anything with showing that option, so I could see that it wasn't a part of it. And then the flail mower attachment had an extension on it originally. They took the extension off at some point, but didn't say anything. It's written exactly the same on paper, but when we got it, we're like, where's the extension? You know, this is supposed to go up so it could go over the guardrail. The hydraulic hoses won't get caught on the posts. So that's another $1,800. They're gonna swap that attachment out. And then to swap out the front axle, there's a little labor involved. And then they're gonna swap the axle, reimburse the cost of the one axle. The difference is only $1,500, but there's freight to and from, plus 7 hours of labor. So overall, it's a cost of $5,500 extra.
Sure, not 6,065.
6,065 in case those freight numbers come in a little different. He tried to give, I asked for a solid number there, but you never know. So we put in a little extra just in case that comes out 600.
And we have the funds to purchase them.
Yes.
Any questions for Ryan on this?
No.
No?
Someone like to move the resolution?
I'll move the resolution. Resolution, Board of Selectmen, Town of Portland, Connecticut, February 7th, 2024, transfer of funds authorizations, Public Works Highway Division Capital. Whereas in account number 08-141-000-89090, Public Works Highway Division, $205,000 was budgeted in the fiscal year 2024 capital improvement plan for a trackless mower. And whereas during the review of the specification of the Highway Division identified safety features that were previously standard on the trackless mower that were now options that needed to be added on, and whereas these safety feature options will cost approximately $6,065 above the $205,000 originally budgeted, and whereas in account number 08-141-000-89090, funds remain from 4 older now complete projects, and whereas the total amount of $6,065 comprised of $3,299 plow replacement, $130 water compressor sandblast, and $2,288 purchase of dump body, and $348 hot box, and whereas replace trackless mower looks to be short funds needed to add necessary safety features / options, and now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby approves the transfer of $6,065 to replace trackless mower from $3,299 plow replacement, $130 water compressor sandblast, $2,288 purchase of dump body, and $348 hot box, all with the account 08-141-000-8909 Public Works Highway Division.
I'll second it.
Thank you both. Any further discussion on this?
No.
Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right. We will now move on to item 10 on tonight's agenda. And this is a discussion on school facilities and Great Blue Research survey results. And so you may recall we had a special joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education back in January. Seamus McNamee of Great Blue Research presented the results and findings from the survey that was mailed out and conducted in town on residents' opinions on where we should be with our schools and the future of them, particularly with the elementary schools. And so we haven't talked as a group about that survey, about the results, and about where everyone's thoughts are. So I thought the first thing we should do is open it up to discussion. who would like to go first?
I'll start. All right, well, I made a little notes here. So my concerns with the survey was with the popular vote being what we call a K through 5 school being built. So in the ed spec reports, it said that there will be 644 students K through 5 and possibly 40 half-day pre-K, almost totaling 700 total kids. This is concerning to me to have in one school the number of students attending one campus in a mega school here. My concern is, so my daughter attends a K through 4 school who hosts 475 kids. She has issues with her lunches, recesses, and gym. Of course, every kid would care about those more than anything else, but so she gets half-hour lunches, but she shares it amongst 5 other grades. She says that's not enough time for her now. In the ed spec reports, you are claiming that there will be 4 lunches at a half-hour apiece through 6 grades with more students. And, well, my first question would be, how many grades are going to share? Are you going to share kindergarten and first grade? Or, like, if you got 4 lunch periods and you got 6 grades, you're going to be intermingling kids. So that's kind of like a question I would have later on in this discussion. My second point of view here is in future enrollment, with Brainerd Place and other major developments over the next 10 years, I feel like enrollment's going to go up. I know we've done studies and says it's going to stay pretty flat. I'm not convinced that that's going to happen. Then with the future enrollment going up, I can also see troubles with longer pickup, drop-off lines, traffic on High Street for the residents that live there, because most of those pickup and drop-offs will become as the residents are leaving from work and coming home. So the number of students, the future enrollment, and just the feasibility of all this happening in one mega school is concerning to me. That I don't think it's possible. I think I remember Lou Pear saying, such a small town, having one school with so many students in it, to get all these programs, or to get the lunches in, the gym classes in, is not feasible. So I'd like to hear a little more about that. Also in the timelines on the ed spec report, they don't seem to line up correctly. It said something like possibly moving in, the new school being done by 2026. The dates didn't seem to jive for me, where I'm thinking it's going to be a whole year later, where from the referendum to the completion date would be more like a September of 2027. And if after referendum, the K through 5 school is approved and we go that direction, we still have needs for these schools. Like, if we're talking 2027, there's like 3 or 4 years that Valley View, Gildersleeve, are we going to be doing any upgrades? I've heard the roofs are collapsing and there's floods in the school. Are we still going to address these while we're in this time period? My fourth thing is, in the ed spec report, in the mechanical survey, it calls for areas to be heated and air conditioned. In other areas, such as media center, gyms, heat only. But there's been no mention of dehumidification, especially with the new ventilation codes. So you're going to allow more outside air, humid air coming in. Now, if we're not dehumidifying these spaces, we could possibly have mold issues. And I've heard up at the high school, middle school, they have huge humidification problems. So I would like to see an ed spec report that there would be dehumidification on these spaces. And I don't understand why you wouldn't heat a media or auditorium or a gym, why you wouldn't put air conditioning in there. Because you're going to have CO2 levels in there. It's going to be rising in temperature. You're going to want to cool off this the space. My last point of view is the end game. If we do decide after referendum and we go to the mega school of K through 5, I think there's some added things we need to think about. Underground utilities, now with the added space of more water, more sewer, more electrical, and more gas, are the lines capable of handling such an increase of student load into these buildings? And if the water lines, sewer lines, electrical lines, all the upgrades require larger lines going for the infrastructure, now we got tie-ins on the High Street. So now we're gonna be tearing up High Street. I suggest that we add the repairs of High Street into the construction survey, because as we know, if you're gonna be tearing up High Street to put these lines in, we can't repair High Street until after the construction's done. So I would suggest adding that into the end game. Another food for thought is, if we are building the K through 5 school, and I saw in the ed spec reports, is they talking about these great views and everything like that, and moving the administration up to view these wonderful views, how about suggesting moving the Board of Education from Town Hall to that school and in their own private office area, so they can be more in touch with the student and faculty. Another possibility, if we do go with the major school, how about a solar array on that hill to help cut the electrical costs for the high school and in the K through 5 school, instead of putting an amphitheater or whatever it called in there. These are just some suggestions for the ed spec report. My opinion is I'm a type of guy that likes to maintain what we have and keep it as is and just make the upgrades as needed. But if it does go to referendum for the one major school, I'm gonna have a tough time swallowing that, but I'll make my decision at a later date after I hear everyone else's opinion. But that's where I stand so far.
Thanks, Mike. Bobby, you wanna go down the line?
I'll pass for now. So, I was an advocate of the survey. I thought it was money well spent. I'm one that believes that if there's a majority of something, that in my position here, I support that we go with what we said we were going to do. But I do have some concerns. And some of my concerns go all the way back to the sightlines report. The last 5 days, I took that line by line by line by line for each school. And what really upset me was I could see the Brownstone Intermediate School, a line saying redo all electrical. Okay, I understand that school's fairly old, and if we got to keep it with all the technology and everything, maybe we have to upgrade the electrical. Same thing was in Gildersleeve, same thing was in Valley View, something similar, the same wording was at the high school, and I'm like, well, maybe they didn't increase the loads that they needed for if we do eventually put the proper HVAC system in there. So I accepted that. But when I saw that under the Portland Middle School, which is just about 20 years old, I'm saying to myself, one, did somebody just go by line and check off the boxes? Or did somebody actually look at it and say, this building never should have been accepted in the beginning? I also am one for capital improvements. About 2 months ago, we were up at the middle school doing fire department training on the elevator. And while I was waiting, I'm looking around at peeling paint. So is it because we don't have enough money to maintain our schools, to paint our schools? that letter Ryan shared with us, which I read yesterday, communications and correspondence, really put me in a, how do I say this? People that know me know that I speak my mind. And I feel with the budget that was put forth by the Board of Education and by the deficit they're experiencing right now, and by looking for appropriations from the Board of Selectmen, that I wonder, is it worth bonding? Do we have leadership in the Board of Education that can spend the town's money wisely? That's all I have.
Go to Mike.
A couple thoughts about the whole process. First of all, I was surprised at the responses we got. I'm surprised that it was keep what we have, to two schools. My gut feeling, based on what I thought was the best, I was a big fan of one school only. And I'm going to re-advocate for that again, because I think it needs to be rethought for a couple of reasons. I think disruption, Michael, like you said, like if we do a whole project, there's a lot of work involved, it's a huge disruption, we don't know the possibility and consequences of that, the costs are more unknown, it stretches out. There's a number of things about that give me pause. And in a way, one school builds more cushion into it as well. We close one school, we do it successfully, we can then re-examine and see if something else needs to be done or tweak. But I think that one is something that I felt the most comfortable. Now, I'm not putting aside the will of the folks that voted, but my feedback from a number of people, some voted, some didn't, was that was still a viable option. And I think that's something that still should be considered.
You're talking
Just one school closing Gilder City.
closing Gilder
Yes,
City.
yes. I think the other thing, the one thing I was concerned about when we first did this, and was my initial hesitation at the survey. I think the survey delivered a lot more than I thought it would. And it gave us great feedback. It was much more detailed than I first imagined. But one of the things I thought that was a missing element, or certainly something that I think would have been important for making the decision, was the details of what would happen with the school. And we're looking into that now. We have a committee. I'd like to encourage us to get that information as soon as possible. We have some of it already done. But I think once we know more about the possible use for the Gilder City, or even the other ones, we'll have a better idea. And I think the townspeople will can have a better understanding of what all the options are and the costs that are associated with that. So that's what I hope we go to next. And then I think we should keep all of the options on the table. And again, at the end of the day, I think we have to decide as a board, together with the Board of Ed and the townspeople, what we think is in the best interest of the town, and then advocate for that. So I think the survey helps. I think the additional information we get will help, and the feedback we get from the town and other experts in the field about what can we do with the school, and what's the best use of that for the town. It gives us the most flexibility with all the plans and with the possible growth we have, et cetera. So that's my 2 cents.
John?
Like you guys, I've read an awful lot, and I've gone through all the different reports. I will say, when you request and you conduct a survey, you get a large amount of data, and that there's an upside to that and there's a downside to that. And I'm sure I did what a lot of us did when we first had this presentation, is I looked for the pie chart to see what everybody voted for. But then after that was done, and I looked through the rest of the fine detail, the secondary and tertiary data that's provided, a couple of them really jumped out at me. One of them was that just slightly over 80% of people, before they vote, want information on what's going to happen with those buildings. I've heard all along through this process, and I continue to hear, that there are quite a few people that, for whether it's a historical reason, for the aesthetic reason, the architectural reasons, they want to see brownstone, this, remain in town hands. Now, where I'm fearful of that is, first of all, and I'll get back to, I actually pulled up the notes. And what bothers me is Ralph Zampano made the motion, I seconded the motion. We all voted unanimously on August 16th, 2023 to create this land and building usage assessment committee, which nothing has happened yet. 5.5, almost 6 months down the road, we still have no data. And I truly believe that people, they showed it in that survey. They want that data to make that decision when they go to vote. The other thing was, and I found it interesting, and it's human nature. People want the best for their kids and their families. But they also want to pay the bare minimum that they need to pay for it. And I think when you have, out of 1 to 10, ranked number 3, 1 being the highest, 71%, I believe, wanted to make sure that the mill rate didn't increase and taxes remained the same. So my gut tells me, and I will say that initially I was in favor of the one school closing. I thought an awful lot of hard work was done. The data was there. They looked at the state reimbursement and everything else, but we're a democracy and the vote counts. But when I looked at the executive summary that was provided to us, one statement jumped right out at me, and it said, in other words, we must communicate the information in a clear, transparent, and ongoing manner to residents in the weeks and months to come, and continue to collect ad hoc feedback from residents on their opinions in support of the proposal. There's an awful lot of work that still has to be done, and you know, I spoke until I was blue in the face about educate, 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 and I still think that's a key piece here. But it's very difficult to educate people on data that we haven't kicked off a committee yet together. I do believe that if this is what people want, and that's what they vote for with the data that we provide to them, that's the route we should go. The only other concern I have is if we're expending all of our funds on whatever is chosen, and if Valley View is the item that's chosen, but if the majority or a large number of Portland residents are okay with that, but they want to keep this in town hands, then essentially what we're doing is we're just taking the ownership and the financial burden of that building from one side of the ledger sheet for Board of Education and moving it to the other side of the ledger sheet for the taxpayers of the town. And I feel that if the investigation is done, this committee gets moving, there are possibilities. You got that building across the street has a solar array on it that can help pay for some of the costs. As I understand it, there are other schools in this area that lease from us now would like to lease more space. There are ways that we can probably make that a cost-neutral building. But once again, these are things that people need to know by the time they get in there to vote. And that's my biggest fear. I mean, I want to see us kick off this thing that almost 6 months ago we said we were going to start. And I want to have everybody in town feel that the information that they need, they have to make an informed decision in November. My 2 cents.
There'll be more on that very soon. Jim?
So, I echo, the concern I've had, one of the concerns I've had, right, is the timing. We need that information, especially when we're looking at trying to get this onto a referendum where we're gonna get the broadest possible response. We don't have a lot of time, so we definitely need to get that moving, so glad we're gonna hear shortly. When I was reading through the survey results, one thing that came to me, when you have 3 options, it's often, I think, an interesting dynamic, right? I find it hard to believe, sort of intuitively, that folks would want to renovate 2, basically down, 1 building and replace 2, or, just none. I just think that when you look at it, I think the majority of residents want us to do some consolidation and derive some of the economies from that, some of the savings from that, those recurring operational administrative costs that, were talked about, a few months ago when we were looking at approving the plan or accepting the plan. I think folks want us to derive some of that, right, that recurring savings. I think that's one of the things that was missing from when I looked through the results here. You know, we look at the costs and the average cost and what it would do to the mill rate, takes into account basically the reimbursements from the state, but it doesn't take into account, or really, at least in a way that was clear to me, sort of like the operational savings that you would get. And I think that's really important, because what's happening to the Board of Ed, and we see this surplus, I have, having served on the Board of Ed and having been to my fair share of those meetings, and worked with some of the players that are still here involved closely, I have, you know, a lot of confidence in their ability to really try to work those numbers. And as I understand it, the other part of the Board of Ed discussion is that that they really got hit with an enormous amount of additional cost that came in that was unanticipated. For example, I think that the number of folks for outplacement have effectively doubled. And when you look at the cost of that, and then you look at the way those costs are being, the percentage of those costs are being shared less and less at the state level. The threshold to start reimbursement has gone up, and the amount, that, you know, the percentage that should be more in the 80% is down in the 70%. So the school boards are having to absorb more of that. That's what's driving, I think, some of these deficits. And really, when you take a look at, I want to say the number of additional costs could have been about 1.7 million associated with some of these additional costs. The deficit that they're looking at is around $350,000. And I think that's a testament to a lot of hard work and some foresight, looking at the budget coming out of last year, to have a hard freeze on a lot of spending, and to be very aggressive in doing that. So I think it's important for us to acknowledge that that work is happening. Let's see. I also agree. I think that when we look at how we communicate this, how we educate, I think making sure we've got public sessions where we're out, where we're answering the different questions, I think part of that has to be not only what's going to happen with the buildings, but also we need to take a look and see where some of our bonded debt, what is going to be coming on, right? What's going to be coming off. We should be, at the end of '23, I believe, pretty much done with the high school secondary complex. 25, but it's still falling off at a pretty good rate. We need to look at, as this bonded debt would be coming online, how much of this would be offset. We know the bonded debt would be, for example, for the premium option, or, you know, for the option rate, I should say, to consolidate to one school would be, it's estimated to be, what, $642 per year, based on a household assessment of $200,000. But how much of the existing bonded debt from the secondary complex will be falling off, and what will that offset? In other words, what will the net to the taxpayer be as we're doing that? I think we need to make sure we do all of that in a full run of education. I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to cover.
Great points. Very good points. Bobby?
I agree with a lot of stuff that everybody had to say. My thing, when I was reading over the ed spec report, like Mike brought up, I just had a couple concerns about, for a school that size, having one cafeteria, having one gymnasium. And the other concern was High Street gets busy now with how many people go to Valley View and the secondary schools. It would be a lot of traffic, because it seems like more parents drop kids off every year. So if you're gonna put all that traffic from Gildersleeve and Brownstone on High Street, that's a lot of traffic in that neighborhood. I'm not saying it can't work, it's just, that's a lot of cars driving through there all day. That's it, I'm gonna start coughing again.
I think that's a lot of great feedback. I think there's a little mixture all around on you know, where we're at now. So I want to touch a little bit and address some of the comments that provide some additional feedback, because I think I can provide some help to this. So I do think, you know, we mailed a survey out to 6,700 or so registered voters in town. We got 1,000 responses, which is way more than you need for a scientific poll. And that's actually a really good response rate. for a survey such as this. And, you know, the nice thing about it is that everyone in town had the opportunity to make their voice heard on this. Everyone had the opportunity to read the school facilities committee report, to read what was recommended, go through all of those plans. A great deal amount of work went into that over the course of 2 years. And then at the end of that, residents had the opportunity to take a survey and fill out their choices for, you know, where they saw the direction and the future of Portland Public Schools. I was surprised by the results. I found out the results just like all of you, right there, and it's certainly interesting. I can see where, Jim, you're coming from, that, you know, the top choice is to consolidate a one elementary school model of pre-K to 5, and then the second choice being capital improvements, and then the third being that just close Gildersleeve and renovate the brownstone. Now, I think that's because that was the most expensive option because of the way that the school is configured at the brownstone school, and the fact that it's as old as it is, and in order to renovate that, I know the school facilities study committee had a proposal to turn over the basement of the biz to the town and maximize state reimbursement that way. But at the same time, that gives the town an unfinished basement that we don't have a real use for, and I wouldn't want to send town staff to a basement such as that, or anyone for that matter. So I don't think that was a feasible option for that reason. But when you look at the results of the survey, you have 56.9% of respondents said, you know, that they would support or could support that one elementary school model of a pre-K to 5 at Valley View. Followed, number 2 was the capital improvement plan, which was 49.8 and 41.9% for that third choice. Now, it's also important to note that, as Seamus pointed out in the survey, 68% of parents supported a pre-K to 5 Valley View. I think that part is significant. And one thing that I did was I reached out to Seamus afterwards, and I asked him, now keep in mind we had 1,000 responses from the survey, and one of the questions that we asked was for those filling out the survey if they would be interested in signing up for the town mailing list, and to, if so, to provide an email address so that we can keep them informed. And for those that did that, we have your emails, and you will be receiving updates very soon from the town. So thank you for doing that. But I asked Seamus, you know, why don't we, if you could take the number and just cut out those who did not put their email addresses, just for my old peace of mind, just in case maybe somebody were to take the survey, and if they were to take it and not really just go through it fast, and maybe they took it more than once, chances are they're not going to put a real email address down while they do that. So why don't we break up those results just to see what would happen to the results of the survey. So we had about 500, about half, put down real addresses, real email addresses. And what was interesting was the number of that supported the one elementary school model went from 56.9% to 66.6% when you did that. It actually went up significantly. The other plans, the capital improvement plan went from 49.8% to 50.2%, and the decommissioned Gildersleeve plan went from 41.9% to 49.7%. So it also had a significant jump. But, you know, to me, it shows that, or at least I think the case is that the town is asking us to go forward with a pre-K to 5 elementary school model. And I think it's up to us and the Board of Education to do it in a way that's fiscally responsible, that addresses debt falling off, that makes sure that High Street is the traffic studies are done on time, that the road is safe for pedestrians and for school buses and all of those people traveling. I think we do have a direction that we should be moving forward with. To be honest, I feel like my brand is I'm like kind of fix what we got kind of guy. I mean, I ran on fixing a track that was broken. That's who I am, you know, and, but I recognize that there are some benefits to this model. We have some significant overhead savings that there's no doubt that we do have. I think we purposely left some of this stuff out, Jim, in the survey because I didn't want to get ahead of providing numbers that weren't real yet. I want people that took the survey, I wanted to almost scare people with numbers to see what they really think, you know what I mean? And so now I think it's up to us to present a plan and do so in a way as fiscally responsible as possible with, minimizing the effect of the mill rate as minimally as possible. A couple things that I wanted to touch on was one thing that the survey did clear up was we know that everyone basically is okay with sixth grade going to the middle school, which I think is great because we can kind of absolve ourselves from a sin created 20 years ago where we overbuilt. Now we can build to our needs. And let's see. So last week on Thursday, Dr. Britton and our Board of Ed chair, myself, we met with Friar Architecture at Valley View to talk about next steps with this, provided there was consensus with this board, looking at the Valley View campus. And I had quite a few questions and concerns. Many of those you guys have brought up today. I'm personally concerned. I want a traffic study done. I want to make sure that we address make sure that we're not overburdening High Street by this. I think that's important to know, ahead of time. I don't want to get too far down the road and then find out that the road can't handle it. So I think that's something that we need to look at. I asked Friar while we met and I know there was some thoughts, and it wasn't addressed in this round of conversation, but we did spend an awful lot of time talking about the secondary schools and about the capital improvements that are needed at the high school and middle school. And so I asked Friar if they would put that into a better cost estimate, because right now, I believe between the next 6 to 8 weeks, they're going to be getting us some really harder costs with the school. And so I should note that in the survey, the amount that we used for the pre-K to 5 was actually the pre-K to 6 number. Again, I was trying to kind of show worst case scenario, but I think the pre-K to 5 model was like $7 million less to the town. Now that's going to go up, I'm sure, because these were early estimates. But I do want you guys to know that there's some savings there. We have debt falling off, and we have overhead savings. So all of those things, I think, can help us go forward in a responsible manner. And I think that it's up to us to present, the best possible option to the town. And I do think that we kind of have a charge and a direction to head in at this point. And then the third question that I asked Friar was, I know, John, the Brownstone Intermediate School, it's not going anywhere. It's a part of Portland history, and I don't know if we're going to have a committee that's going to look into what we do with these schools, and I don't know what they're going to recommend, but we know it's not going anywhere. Gildersleeve, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to recommend, and I do know that there's an estimated cost if we were to demolish Gildersleeve. I believe it's estimated to be $2 million. So I asked Friar if they could get us a hard cost on that, because part of me was wondering, well, let's say we have a bonding referendum question in November. Well, maybe we have one question on a bonding referendum for the Valley View pre-K to 5 school, and we have a second on the secondary schools. Now, just a thought, because I know we've talked about, well, what happens when we take out this bond and we know we have more work to do in 5 years, and do we want to have to come back to the voters in 5 years, or do we want to at least present them with an option now? Something to think about. So I thought that we should have that conversation. And then also, a third question could be, if it came to demolishing Gildersleeve, if that could be a third ballot question. Because I know that no one wants a repeat of Central School and have a abandoned building sitting for 20 years. I think that is out of the question too. So these are just some food for thought for now, but these are things that I'm thinking about that I think that we should all collectively think about. And these are very, very big decisions. I mean, I didn't, set out to close 2 schools. That was not, why I ran for first selectman, and I wasn't expecting to be in this position. But, I think we have a duty to represent, the town, and the town has asked us and told us which direction they want to head in. And I think we need to do our best to listen to them. I reached out to our bond counsel, just so you all know. June 30th is the deadline for the state application to get that state reimbursement. In order for that to happen, we would most likely need to hold a public hearing, most likely in May. We would do that in May. Then we would schedule a special town meeting, also in May. And then at that special town meeting, we would adjourn the meeting to the November 2024 referendum. So that, we have time, but to your point, John, we need to get going with what this committee is going to determine, is best for these buildings and that land. So the committee, the Land and Building Usage Assessment Committee, we have a list of names of very well qualified Portland residents, and we wanted to make sure, or I wanted to make sure that we didn't just have, anybody on here, but people who were skilled in these fields and who knew a little bit about architecture, and knew a little bit about construction and real estate, and I think we're gonna have a pretty good committee that's gonna help us to arrive at some good options. So, at least those are my opinions on all this. I'm talking to you as, a fellow selectman right now, and, there's a lot more work to do. I know, the Board of Education met last night, and I know they're working hard as well. I know they're going to have to approve the education specification plan that the superintendent put forward. I think that's next for them. And, there'll be more to come on this, and certainly we got to see some more real numbers, because at the end of the day, it's going to be about what the town in Portland and our taxpayers can afford. And I will not put forward a plan that overburdens them. That is something that I know I would support. So we need to do all that we can to do this right and do it affordably. And I think that we can. I really do.
I have one question, Ryan. In the survey, it asked for comments as you were taking the survey. Did we get what those comments, what people responded?
Was my microphone on? Yes, actually, it's funny you should ask, because I reached out to Great Blue asking for those comments. I was just emailed them, I think today, and I haven't gone through them, but I have them. If anyone would like to read the comments, I'd be happy to forward you that email.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Absolutely.
The comments, do we have all the back-end data as well? Like the actual response data from them?
I didn't ask for the but we could get that.
Yeah,
sure.
I would actually be curious, because sometimes you can take, a bundle of data and cut it up different ways and get some different answers too, so.
Mhm.
Be interesting to see some of it, the raw data.
The last thing I'd like to put on, I didn't address it, I actually meant to, and I forgot in my statement, but you talked about the secondary school repairs. And living in town all my life, time flies when you're having fun. My son, it occurred to me last night, he was in high school when those additions were put on. He'll be 35. So it may not seem, time flies, and it may not seem to a lot of residents like it's been that long, but it has been that long. And I would hope we learned our lesson from having our teachers and our students at Valley View walking around tarps and buckets full of water. We cannot let what happened to Valley View due to putting things off happen to the secondary schools. So I really think we need to give some serious consideration to the best way to put that question forward to a positive result. Because, we're going to the well to ask taxpayers to foot a pretty good bill. And I don't think it's appropriate to go back 2 years or 3 years later to ask them for more money. I think we have to find a way to, again, I'll use the word educate, educate, educate. As we get this data, we need to be pumping this data out to people so they understand what's really at work here. And again, what we can do with the buildings. All the information that we get needs to be communicated. As the survey said, we need to be transparent, and I think that's critical.
Yeah, and I think the Sightlines report that we base a lot of this off of is, it tells you what's required in, like the near term and then in the out years. And I think that as we look at letting folks know and kind of give them a prediction of, this is how it's going to impact your mill rate. This is how the bonding would be impacted. There's stuff that's, for example, in the 8 to 10 year bucket in that report, right, in the out years, where we wouldn't have to address or actually spend that money, right, until a little bit later on. But I think that the taxpayers knowing sort of what's required and making sure that we can actually take care of all of our schools is going to be important.
So keep in mind, we're going to have to do a lot of work to get to that June 30th deadline.
Yeah.
And once we do that, though, the good news is the hard part will necessarily kind of be over, and the next part I see is the educational aspect. And we'll have a number of months to put all of that data in and be ready so that we can make sure that the voters are educated by the time November comes around and there are ballot questions.
I believe there was a clear message in the survey that that's what they want. That was the highest percentage of anything in the survey, was they want the information on the building's futures before they go to the polls.
Yeah, and I know we spent a lot of time with the Route 17 park, for example, with, sitting in the, in the cafeterias at the high school and such, just answering questions, going to different places. So I anticipate that those will all be components of the education we'll have to do.
So I guess I just, for peace of mind, just as far as a consensus goes, is there, I know, Mike, you had said you were still in favor of the only closed Gildersleeve option, but I just don't see how we can go with a survey that 1,000 residents took the time to fill out and to go with the option that came in third place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think without all the costs, without all the details or more firm details, I think it'd be worth a consideration.
Well, I think
Because it
so,
wasn't-
but I mean, I think once we get true costs, because we're looking at fictitious
Of course,
fictitious
of
numbers.
course.
It's their square footage numbers. Like I talked to Ryan, we don't even know if we go with this, the Valley View yet right now, okay? We know that whole area is full of ledge. We know we might have to increase our structure. I mean, there's a lot of things that what Fryer brought to us so far is not in the equation. So once he gets the ed spec, and like Ryan said, he walked Valley View, and they had some construction companies, I guess, along with you with Fryer, so you'll get a better idea. But I think it all comes down to, this is the overwhelming support for the mega school, right? I understand where Jim's coming from with the savings if it just falls back onto just repair what we have. But once we get the numbers and we educate everyone, then we put up, if that's what we put up, that's what we put up, that's what they wanted. Then it's off us. It's the residents will decide what they want to pay for. We're not going to be making that decision for everyone in Portland. We're putting forward what they asked us to put forward.
I think the only thing I would add to that, though, is I think, yes, that's what this one survey has done, and we did as detailed as we can. It's a survey, it's a snapshot in time. But I think we also can't neglect our duty as selectmen members to decide what we think would also be best for the town. So we may, again, I'll advocate for the one school again, but it could be any position that maybe the popular vote is something, but maybe we feel based on the cost, the dollars,
Right.
what people think is gonna happen to population in town, all those factors, I think we have to, I don't feel comfortable, I guess, just pushing it off, and I don't mean in that negative way, but just survey only as the only decision. I know that's not, but I think we also have to look at all the details more. I just don't feel like I have enough details now. because-
None of us have
yeah,
now.
and I
We
think-
don't have,
And that may only be a month or two from
the
now.
committee hasn't met on what to do with the schools, if they're
Exactly.
both closed. We still don't have solid numbers on what this is gonna
And I don't
cost.
think we're at the point where we have to decide right
No,
now.
but I just
But
think we
I
have to
do.
keep that
We
in
actually
mind,
kinda
that,
do. You know, we have to pick
we-
a direction. We've
Right.
spent 2 years on a facility study committee, and then we've conducted a survey. I don't know how much more research that we can do without having to pick a direction and taking the ball and running with it. At some point, especially with a November referendum right around the corner,
Right.
we
June
have to.
30th is
Well, I think-
really the deadline, right?
But I'll also say that I think the key is really getting that committee going as quickly as possible, because it's not, they're not gonna give us a package, right? It's what we do with Gildersleeve and then what we do with Biz are gonna be two independent things. So as we get more data, if there's a different determination of how it's gonna go with, you know, in terms of what the package is gonna be, 1 school, 2 schools, you know, that's fine. But the key is, at least for now, understanding what we would do with each one of those schools, right? And then from there, we've got all the information that we need, at least on that front.
And the only other issue I'd like to raise, and when I was looking at the August 23 minutes, if you recall, the way that charge was originally written, they were gonna review Gildersleeve, BIS, and Town Hall and present a final report. I made an amendment to say that they review Gildersleeve and present a preliminary report to us. Then they look at BIS and present another preliminary report. We needed to get that information rather than waiting till the very end. I wonder now, with the short timeline that we have and trying to be as expeditious as possible, do we maybe need to rethink that charge again? Which school is gonna take more effort to evaluate? Is it gonna be BIS or is it gonna be Gildersleeve? We had Gildersleeve first, and we had them doing it very distinctly as Gildersleeve, present a report, BIS, present a report. Do we maybe wanna modify that charge a little bit to use their time wisely?
Yeah, I think we need it in parallel. I don't think we have the time to do it in
I think we
series.
have to look at, they have to be looked
Yeah,
at.
I just wanna make sure, if they're gonna have to file that charge by the letter, I wanna make sure that we do it in a way that works for the group.
So, okay, just to talk about this committee for a little bit, because I do want to, the reason why we've taken some time to get this committee going was because we were looking at a number of options, and we didn't really have a clear direction of which option we would go in, and there was a significant chance that a capital improvement option was something that could occur. And if the survey had, come back with that's where the townspeople were headed, then there wouldn't have been a need for that committee. And I wanted to make sure that we had qualified people on that committee, and I don't want to waste people's time. And so I wanted to make sure that the timing was right, and everyone that is going to be on this committee is ready to move, and to move quickly. And so I have no doubt that they're going to be able to provide us with some very useful information in a pretty quick time period. And so everyone is very excited to get on board and to get going. The first meeting will be this month, and we'll talk more about that, I guess, under appointments to boards and commissions. But that's basically where we've been at. I didn't feel comfortable having people spend all this time looking at, well, what if we closed Brownstone, and then tell them, you know what, we're not doing that, so, thanks for all that for nothing. You know what I mean? I just don't want to waste people's time.
Yeah, I think that's understood, and besides, there's nothing we can do with that anyway. I think the key is, we just gotta get it going.
I just know.
Forward from here,
The
I
most
guess is the
common
key.
question I get, I think all of us, is what would you do with the school? Like, what would be the other uses of the school?
I don't know,
Yeah.
You know?
there's
Well,
a
that's what I'm
lot,
saying,
there's a lot of
But that's the most,
options.
that's the most
A lot
questions
of
I've gotten, is
options.
like,
Right.
would other schools rent it out? Would you demo, would you build something on the top, whatever, there's always people asking about that.
Right,
That's
and
the- that's
and
the
there's a lot
unknown.
that goes into that.
Of course,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, so as far as, I guess, so Mike, you were on the one school. Is there anyone that's still on a one, aside from Mike, is anyone on the close just Gildersleeve plan? Is anyone on the capital improvements plan?
That'd be me.
Two?
But subject to change.
Right.
I'm not
Yeah.
sticking, I'm not
I mean,
sticking
I'm
to
not,
that,
like,
but
sticking
I'm
to-
leaning that
Well,
way.
I think we have to, I mean, I want to get a consensus so that we can go forward with this. So I need this body to at least tell me, yeah, pre-K to 5, you know,
I think-
is where we're gonna head.
I have a suggestion.
I
don't know if
still
it's-
think we have to go with what was presented to us. And like you said, Ryan, if we can put those numbers forth to the residents where it's not gonna kill them, then that's what we have to go.
And that's what I think we have, and I agree. I mean,
But
that's-
if it comes back where you know and I know, because we're all paying, you know, it's not like any of us in this room are excluded. We're making a decision that's gonna impact us, whether we're on the Board of Selectmen, Board of Education. So, you know, we gotta take it seriously. And we have to have all the numbers. But if that comes in where we think, okay, the numbers look right, and that's what the survey and all the information and whatever, data, and that was one of the things John had mentioned before, was we can get tied up in data and lose our way. I think we're past that.
So I have a suggestion. This might be a good time. I'd love to hear Board of Ed feedback or,
Well, I mean, I don't know how much time, we got
You got
a
a
lot
big
more
meeting.
meeting
no, I
ahead.
understand.
Yeah.
But,
Long meeting.
but if you're asking for a vote right now.
I'm not asking
Oh,
for a vote.
okay,
I'm
then.
asking for I just want to see if there's
Consensus.
Yeah.
consensus. I think there is, I mean.
My
I think
feeling
there's-
is,
From my view, I think there's enough of a consensus,
Yeah.
right, that, with the fact is, we lose absolutely nothing by getting the committee going and looking at both buildings at this
Right.
point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's enough of a consensus from, you know, at least in my opinion, to do that, from where I sit. And then that's gonna give us more data that we're gonna need.
Okay. I think that's
The data which the voters are asking.
Mhm.
Yep,
all right.
exactly.
So
That's
more.
what I was gonna say, is we asked for the survey. The survey pointed the majority of people want the mega school plan, that we go forward with that. And like everyone anticipates, we're gonna have record turnout in November for the election.
Yeah.
So that's gonna settle it right there.
Right.
Either they want it or they don't want it.
That's true.
At the end of the day, you have to remember that our goal is to get something passed, because we have buildings falling apart.
Right.
And the children in town need a good, solid academic learning space, and we need to provide that to them. And we need to do that in a fiscally responsible way. And in order for that to happen, we need a majority to vote yes in November. So I think it's up to us to present the best plan that has the best chance of getting a yes vote in November. I think that is ultimately our charge and what we need to do.
I agree with you.
And as we gather the data and we present the data to the folks, they answered this survey, they were presented information, they weren't doing this in a vacuum, they knew what it was gonna cost. But 80% of them made it very clear that they want to have additional data. As that additional data comes out and we roll it out to the public, they're gonna begin to formulate, okay, I can live with that. And if something turns up and this, somewhere along the line, a digit was slipped and we're totally off the mark, then ultimately, the townspeople decide.
Yep.
Fact is that, you know, a major factor why people move here. You know, one of the reasons we moved our family here, one of the reasons is our schools, and we hear it all the time, so
As
we have to get this right.
As the liaison for this board, I've sat in on just about every Board of Education meeting since I took that role. And not the last meeting, but the meeting before, there were, I'd say, at least a dozen people in the high school library, and probably the same number of people on Zoom. And the message was very clear. They were predominantly young families. They did not grow up in Portland, and they moved here because they wanted this school system for their children. And one guy is a teacher in East Hampton. He grew up in East Hampton. He and his wife moved to Portland because they thought the school system was good. And they were all unison in their message that they want to make sure that the school system that we continue to have. Yeah, and I think we have to keep that, the kids have to be foremost in our minds on this. And their families, their parents. And the fact that we are drawing people here to town. This town offers a lot, and the school system offers a lot. And I've said this a million times. People pay money to put their kids in private schools to get a low student-teacher ratio. Because we are a small town and a small school system, we have that, and people are coming for that. So we have to make sure that, and I've had to do this many times, I've had to refocus my brain when I'm working this thing through, and I have to say, no, it's not about what I want, it's about our kids. And you have to just keep focusing that. That's
I guess we can move.
my 2 cents.
Move on.
I think so. I think, did we cover that enough, everyone? You guys good?
Should we go or circle around again?
All right, we'll move on. I think there'll be more to come, I'm sure. So we'll move on to item 11. This is a proposed revisions to our policy on fixing property assessments. I want to thank, we had a subcommittee, and the subcommittee was made up of Sean, Mike Hernandez, and John?
No, it was
Sean,
Bobby,
Bobby.
me, Bobby,
Sorry.
Sean, Bobby, and me.
and John.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
You can join if you want, Mike.
No, it's all done, Mike. You can
But
go in.
we took all of your recommendations, I put everything in, and we spent some time on this, and I had it reviewed by our tax assessor, Rich Lasky, and also our town attorney, Carrie Olson. We revised not just the policy itself, but also the application as well. And this was sent to you all, I believe, yesterday. And so I'm not sure if everyone has had an opportunity to read through it. Those who were on the committee, everything should look very familiar to you. For those who were not on the committee, what this was seeking to do was kind of put some more boundaries in place and kind of flesh out the qualifications and the requirements for a fixed assessment policy going forward, as well as setting out some timelines, as well, some application deadlines, and also what would be submitted and what would be needed to be submitted in that.
And we also want to present ourselves as business-friendly and competitive with our surrounding communities.
Which isn't.
So I went through this, and I like the changes that I saw, so I'd also say, thank you to the committee for that work. I only had really one comment, or one thing I'd like to see. If you look at D, E, and F on the second page, it provides options. I think, previously, I think we went up to 7 years with kind of a special agreement. I just wanted to add some verbiage that basically, we talk about the fact that it's available for a fixed, just adding some verbiage that says, final and schedule of terms, to be determined by BOS, as, when we approve the application, or in review of the application. Just something that basically says that, yes, it's available, which is just communicating to businesses, but when you get into those larger projects, given the fact that there can be a lot of variation in terms of impact and what they do, that the final terms, the final schedule, the actual final terms, handling any special situations will be determined by the BOS.
I think that.
Is it somewhere that I have?
Under guidelines.
Guidelines, it's number 6, Jim. I think that's what you're
Is it?
looking for, yeah.
No, that's, no, I'm talking about something different.
Yeah, I know.
I know what it's saying. What I'm talking about
I thought we
is,
put that in there, though, Ron.
I'm talking about conditions.
No,
In other words, for example, right, I'll use Brainerd Place as an example, right? We have a custom schedule for Brainerd Place in terms of the percentages, based on the economic impact that we assessed is gonna, you know, how that's gonna impact the town. And there was some, because there were special conditions on the site, we were able to say it's tied to the restoration of those buildings, right? I think the ability just to say in the out years, hey, this is what the schedule's gonna be, because we don't have a schedule that's longer than 4 years, right? Just saying, you know, the final schedule will be determined at that time. Maybe it'll be the same percentages, maybe they'll be different.
Well, that's why we left it. So right now, and I'll double check with Carrie on this,
Yeah.
but right now, the verbiage that you're looking at for D, E, and F
Yeah.
is the same as our old policy. So whereas we kind of tightened up the requirements for the lower dollar thresholds.
Yeah.
So if you see, like, if cost of improvements is not less than $1 million, then we have a 4-year window of fixed assessment, where year one up to 50%, year two up to 35. But say for D is if the cost of improvements is not less than $5 million, it gives us a 5-year window, but that is open to this board to negotiate. That's why there's no schedule in there. We have the ability with this now.
I guess
to
I just wanted to
negotiate.
expressly say that.
You
That's all,
wanted to-
that's all. I was just
Okay.
saying, just to have that, just to have that in there. Even if it's just a line item down here in guidelines that say, you know,
Yeah,
these guidelines will be, you know, as negotiated, you know, and determined by the Board of Selectmen. Something that says it, so it's just kind of spelled out.
Yeah, no, I
That's it.
agree. I think we already have that power, but we can put that in, certainly.
I think it looks really good, Ryan.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that was the only thing I saw that
I'm good.
I would like to see.
Your thoughts on the application itself? I think one of the problems that we had with our previous application was that it just left some room for, you know, incomplete applications and not enough information to make a good decision. So we tried to fix that by getting some real questions. You know, one of the big questions that's important to me is question 9, would this project happen without a fixed assessment agreement in place? Because I really want to make sure that we're incentivizing businesses that need the incentive, and not those that would be coming to town either way. I want to make sure that this is bringing people to town and not just, you know, something that they can apply for just because it's there.
And the one that we added to number 14, provide information on all state or federal abatement incentive programs you've applied for, will apply for, or may have received. I think that's important to know.
Correct, yeah, that was a good one too. So, Jim, we'll add something for D, E, and F, or maybe another guideline.
Just a bullet, yeah, just one
to
sentence
say
in the guidelines that would.
The Board of Selectmen shall have sole discretion over, you know, negotiating the terms of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something simple, it just spells it out.
Okay.
Because we all understand it, you know, here, but it's just good for,
This will be
Somebody
10
picks
years
up and
down
looks
the
at the
road, a new
policy.
board, maybe
Yeah.
that would help them.
or somebody pulling the policy to read it to see what they have to do, will understand.
Yeah, okay, great. Does anybody else, so other than that, we're all comfortable and maybe
Yeah,
we'll.
it's
Yeah.
pretty much what we discussed.
All right, we'll put it on the agenda for our next meeting then. Okay. Great, thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 12. And this is appointments to boards and commissions. Bobby, do you have any appointments for us?
Yes, I do. For the Land and Building Usage Assessment Committee, nomination for Ken Woodward. I'll second that.
Great. Ken is a certified professional estimator, so I just will add that. We're grateful for his service. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
For that same committee, we have Brian Walsh. I'll second that.
Great. Brian is a regional manager with D&D Construction, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
For the same committee, Warren Brees. I'll second that.
All right. And Warren is a general superintendent
for
Nozzle,
nozzle
construction.
construction. Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
And for that same committee, Angela Oresco.
I'll second that.
Great. And Angela is a real estate agent with Carl Guild and Associates. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. So, I want to thank all of those four people who are joining us and who will be joining Kristen Furtak, who is a learning environmental planner with a background in architecture, who has already been appointed. So with that, I know Sean is the Board of Selectmen representative on that committee, and we have Dave Murphy representing the Board of Education. The first meeting of this committee I have scheduled for February 27th, Tuesday, so February 27th at 6 or 7. I have to see what works best for the members, but that'll be the first meeting, and they're going to be meeting twice a month, and everyone seems to be okay that I've talked to get this done quickly, because they know they need to get some work and get some answers for us. So, any other appointments, Bobby?
No, that's all I have.
You guys have any appointments? Okay. All right. With that, we'll move on to refunds of excess payments.
Make a motion for a refund of excess payment for Eric R. Kelly, $502.74.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
Motion for refund of excess payment, CCAP Auto Lease Limited, $769.43.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Great. And we'll move on. Item 14, status and committee reports. I got a few things I'll go through pretty quick. Some exciting announcements. We have 2 new police officers that will be joining our Portland Police Department. I'll have the honor of swearing in Officer Justin Cochran tomorrow at 3 p.m. here in the Buck Foreman building. Justin is a certified police officer who is coming to us from New Jersey, actually. So we're grateful to have him. I think he's a 3 or 4 year veteran of the New Jersey police force, and him and his family are relocating to. I think they're coming to Portland. He said they're trying to find a house, so we wish them well. But we're excited for that. And then on February 20th, I will be swearing in Bill Madano to the Portland Police Department as well. Bill has been a Middletown police officer for the past 20 years. He's retiring with Middletown and will be transferring over to Portland. So we're excited to have both of those. As you know, we've had a few retirements that have hit our police department. So we're excited to get certified officers that don't need to go through the academy, that can get started right away. And so we're excited to get that going. I know our police captain is excited as well. And we still are looking for officers. We still have a couple more positions to fill, and we're working on that. With that, because of the turnover in the police department, we have 2 promotions. So we have 2 new police sergeants, and I want to congratulate Sergeant Jim Capello and Sergeant Dan Knapp. And so they tested. There were a number of officers that tested, and the 2 of them had the highest scores at the end of the test, and so that's how they were selected, and we wish them well and congratulate them both. Want to let everyone know that Dave Kosminski, who has retired from the town of Portland, but I feel like I see him just as much at Town Hall. He has not gone anywhere, which is good because we like to see Dave. We are having a retirement party for Dave at St. Clements on March 7th. This is not an official Town of Portland event. All the ticket sales are what is funding the event. There's no tax dollars or anything on this. But certainly we want to congratulate Dave for 50 years of employment with the Town of Portland. So please, I encourage you to buy tickets. They're available in the town clerk's office, and they're $50, but it should be a nice evening at St. Clements on March 7th.
I bought 2 today,
Thank you.
and I was told it's $1 for every year he worked for the town.
I didn't think of that. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I just want to let everyone know that as you may have seen with the Board of Education, we are in budget season, so I know Long Range Capital Commission is meeting next week with department heads. I see Mike Aguilotti here, thank you. And I know I will be working on my budget, which will be, is due on March 1st. I see Tom here, we got some work to do. Looking forward to that, so we'll have a fun second half of the month, I know. And also, our grand list was finalized as of January 31st. I just want to let everyone know how we did. Overall, we had a 0.46% increase to the grand list last year, with real estate coming in with a 0.95% increase, which is pretty good, almost 1%. But personal property went up 2.64%, which is excellent. And we took a little hit on motor vehicles with 4.09%. So that's how we got to the 0.46. But when it comes to the grand list, real estate and personal property are much better than the motor vehicle, which, if you may recall, is capped with the mill rate. So certainly, I think it's a good grand list for us, and it just shows that we're growing. If you look at our top 10 taxpayers, there's some new faces from the past couple of years. So one of which is sitting in the back row, I think. Thank you. And that's it for me for announcements. So what do you guys have?
I was at the Portland Library Board of Directors meeting on January 18th, and they had the election of officers, and Laurel Steinhauser is chairperson. Don Eiler is vice chair, and I hope I get her last name right, Betsy Graziano, corresponding secretary. And the other thing I thought was kind of neat and notable was that they are working on a, somewhat, I guess it would be an amnesty for long lost items. Like over 5 years, there's people that can't come to the library because they've lost things, and they're trying to clean that up and get people back into the library.
Okay.
So they're in the early stages of working on that. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Like you said, Capitol is next week. I will be at that. Planning and zoning and wetlands has been very busy with new applications. So I hope to see those approved and moving forward.
Yeah, we have some exciting applications. I think we won't talk. I feel like we need to do them justice. You know, I don't want to.
No, I hear you.
You know what I mean? I don't want to jump the gun, but we're very excited about some upcoming projects, certainly. Any other status in committee?
I sat with the Board of Education last evening, and I'll say that the vast majority of the meeting discussed everything we talked about here tonight, from Dr. Britton's letter to the Great Blue Survey and some other things, but essentially, it was a long, detailed meeting, but that's what it was all about.
There's just one other thing that is this, just an update that the fire truck that we just approved last month, they're already starting to work on. They have the pump installed already. They were going over graphics with Tommy Gent and Ray Sajak and the lighting, and they said 2 weeks ago we might see like a 90-day turnaround on this truck. We got East Hampton's replacement that we're borrowing yesterday. We trained on it last night. I drove it to its first call this morning. So that's already being put into use, so protecting the town.
Do you want to clarify that that is for the whole truck, including the body?
It is for the whole truck.
Okay.
Including the body, the pump, everything, yeah.
Brought evidence, I like it.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you, Sean. Anything else for status reports? If not, we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience? Been with us this long? Come on.
Come on, Mike.
We're not that entertaining.
Hi, Laurel, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good.
Laurel Steinhauser, 56 Prospect Street. Here in my Board of Ed capacity, a couple things. I'm not gonna dig in too much. I guess I want to thank you all for the good conversation tonight around the facilities consolidation and the survey results. I want to just say very clearly to you all and to our community that we are incredibly fortunate to have Dr. Britton as our superintendent. We are incredibly fortunate to have Stephanie Fergola as our finance director. Their leadership has the full support and backing of the entire Board of Education. I think you could ask any member of the Board of Ed, and we all stand solidly behind them and their leadership, and we are grateful to them. That said, what I really want to say is that I believe we all want the same thing. I believe Dr. Britton, the Board of Education, and all of you, I believe we all want the same thing. I think we want safe and healthy schools for our kids. I think we want to realize the operational and administrative savings of operating fewer schools, and I think we want to do it in the way that has the least impact on our taxpayers. And I really truly believe that we are all in agreement on that. Last night in our Board of Ed meeting, there was a lot of good conversation. There's some differing opinions, but the real takeaway for me is that we talked a lot about consensus and collaboration. Dave Murphy used those words first. But that was really the takeaway from the meeting, consensus and collaboration. That's where we want to be on the Board of Ed side of things. That's where we want to be with you all. We want to get to a place of consensus. We want to be working together collaboratively. We want to be good partners with the Board of Selectmen so that we can move forward a plan that will pass in November, and so that we can do the best for our community, the best for our children. So again, thank you for having this conversation tonight, and we're looking forward to being good partners with you all moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Laura.
Anyone else?
I'll just say it from here, Meg Scott of 5 Freeway. I echo everything that Laurel said. We want to work with you. Thank you for the good, rich conversation tonight. Clearly, people are working through the questions that they have. But I want to applaud you, Ryan, for the summary that you gave about what we got from the survey. Information that you need.
And now I wish you said it in the microphone.
Sorry.
Thank you.
She doesn't want it on record.
We have witness notes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That summarized everything. I just want to say.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you.
And I can't believe Mike turned your mic off right before you
I know,
started.
it's clever. Paula, yeah?
I'm looking, I'm sorry, I was working
No,
out with
you're
Mike.
fine.
Paula Galati, 4 Victoria Road. So I raised 4 children here with Michael. We went through the school system. I remember voting on the last school and people who were on that, and the school is falling apart because, and the paint's coming down, there's no AC in a lot of the areas. It's a lot of dead space. Any of us who had kids going through. You guys owed us a school back then. That was what we all voted on and never came in. So I hear everybody here talking, and I really hope people took the time to look into those surveys. They took the time to tell you their opinion. Your job is to represent us. That's why we voted for all of you, to be there. And I think you need to remember that. You have your own opinions, but ultimately, Ryan, you said it, you have to listen to what the people want and what they need. It was terrible for my kids to go through every 2 years going to different schools. It was horrible. And anybody that had kids going through that was really difficult because they never were acclimated, right? They never had a chance. And they did go through those Valley View school. It was horrible. It was terrible to go there. It was embarrassing. And I think that's what you need to do. You need to represent what we're asking. And most of them are saying, yes, there has to be some discussion, just like you do your home. How are you going to pay and do people just let their houses go, or do you put money into it? If you look at East Hampton, and I came from East Hampton, they always put money into the school. They never had the problems that we always have. The schools are falling apart, and we all look surprised. Well, if you don't put money into your house is gonna fall apart. That's what happens. So I don't know why we don't plan on that. I've had conversations when the kids were going up to schools. You know a big group is coming. My daughter was 150 kids coming after a kid, at 80. And they were shocked. I'm like, why are you shocked? They came in kindergarten. So I'm just asking that you listen to what the townspeople are asking you to do. They're asking you to really look at it. Like I said, Yoas is cool. Now you're looking at the other. It's the upkeep. It's everything. And there's a lot of great things that you can do with the schools that are here. Wouldn't it be nice to have just open space somewhere? The dog park people want? I don't know. I'm just trying to, it's just, yeah. And you said it nicely. So I think that we just do want information, but you really do have to look at those surveys. That's it.
Thank you,
Thank
Paula.
you, Paula, yeah. Anyone else? Anyone online? All right, going once.
Oh, boy.
There we go.
You can't let Paula have the last word. can
We
you?
were this close, Ryan, this
No,
close.
you can't, no.
Mike Adelati, 4 Victoria Road. As Paula said, 20 years ago, we voted on a question, and we were told that a school would close back 20 years ago. It never happened. Kids were not going to intermingle in the two schools. It happened. I just hope you guys put all the information out correctly. They said we're going to have the school population was going to skyrocket. It didn't happen. We're going to be on the hook for $4 million. The great Senator Eileen Daly and Jim O'Rourke bailed us out. The state covered that. They weren't happy about it. They hit us with some ADA issues after to make us pay for. That's why you got the, anybody knows the dugouts at the school and stuff came later on. So a lot of townspeople have not forgot that. You still owe us a school, closed, never happened. So I hope you come through with the true things the town wants to do. People want to see 2 schools closed. It's expensive to live in Portland. You're looking at $600 increase in taxes on top of regular yearly increases. I mean, I see people what they're paying. Some people are paying $9,000 to $10,000 on their house taxes. You add insurance, it's $1,000 a month for taxes and insurance. The roads, excuse my language, suck in town. They're horrible. We haven't done anything. I've been on long range for 20 years. We don't do anything in this town because we don't have the money. I get it. We put a lot of money into schools, put a lot of money with a volunteer fire department. We have a small police department. But sooner or later, you're going to have to do something here. We got to, you just can't keep raising taxes. So I hope the numbers, like Selectman Manning said, are real true numbers. I know John says we got to look at the whole picture. That's what the survey's telling you. That's why people are saying they want 2 schools closed, because it's just getting too unaffordable in Portland.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
We're working on the roads, all right?
That
Just
was the
not
Irish
yours.
talking on the shirt.
All right, anyone else? All right, we'll move on to.
Another Adelati there.
She's the quiet one.
Board of Selectmen, general informal discussion. Anybody have anything?
No.
I got just one quick thing.
Oh,
No, it's, this,
okay. It's not a Bobby.
So Old Engine 3 is out at the town garage. The town garage people expressed interest in taking over that engine for their own personal use, converting it into a town use vehicle. I don't know the process of that. I don't know if it has to be transferred from the fire department division to the town garage. I told them I'd ask the question, and is there any way that they can take over the engine 3? Old engine 3.
I don't know. I mean,
The mechanic, I inspected it, said it was fit for service mechanically. They want to take off the pump and the tank, the body, convert it to like a flatbed and use it for what miscellaneous town needs. They said it's feasible.
I mean, we can certainly look into it. This is the first I heard about it, so let's.
That's why I'm putting general discussion. I'm letting you know about it.
Thanks.
So I just don't know how they can take ownership of it.
Okay, you did, well, let me look into that, because I don't, when you say take ownership, who would be taking ownership?
Well,
The
they
town-
mean-
the
it
town
means going
garage.
from the fire department to public works.
Ah, got it, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's gotta be a transfer involved.
Yeah, we can, I mean, the town owns.
The truck,
No.
right?
Yeah, that wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Right.
be difficult. But typically, when we purchase new equipment, you know, we oftentimes sell the old equipment to recoup some of our expenses, you know, so we will have to, you know, see, you know, look into it, but if there's a need for that within Public Works, certainly we can look into, you know, why not, right?
Yep.
But, you did touch on something, I do wanna let our fire department know that, you know, I haven't forgotten about, the old Mac, the 44, 45?
48.
No.
Yeah, it was 47, 48, right, Mike?
No. Well, we haven't forgotten about it, so we'll be putting that
46,
back.
47.
We're gonna need to have a public hearing to do that at
Okay.
some point. So, at an upcoming meeting, we'll set a public hearing date, but I think we got a little sidetracked with engine 3, and that would, you know, obviously became a priority due to public safety. So with that resolved, we can, you know, get back and take care of that. So I just, you know, wanna make sure, because I think everybody, we're all on board with that. So, all right, with that, we'll move on. I have nothing under follow-up items, but we do have an executive session tonight, so this will conclude the regular meeting for everyone. But Dan Bertram is here this evening, so can I get a motion to
I
enter?
make a motion, we go into executive session and invite Dan Bertram.
Perfect. Who seconded that?
I'll second it.
Jim got
Thank you,
it.
Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.